AI and technology is aiding these fraudsters in advancing for their own benefits, whether it be a altered check or the technology, the printers. The printer I have could probably print a pretty good quality check, but you imagine what fraudsters have at their exposure, at their disposal with the monies that they have, both as a group or as a conglomerate, as a fraud group.
Welcome in, everybody. You're listening to Wrestling Payments, a podcast where we help payment professionals contend with the challenges of modernizing their payments operations and identifying ways to build for the future. If you're interested in payments innovation and modernization, you're in the right place. Now, let's get into it.
Hello and welcome to Wrestling Payments. Today's guest is Brian Keefe from Nice Actimize. Brian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, Joe, yes, absolutely. So my name is Brian Keefe. I'm a manager of the pre-sales team here at Nice Actimize, and it's a pleasure to be in this conversation today with Joe and the crew.
Excellent. So I'm not sure where this is going to end, but let's start with, I've seen you guys everywhere. I've seen conferences, I've seen white papers, I've seen downloads, and I've downloaded them all. I know that you're very active in AI and fraud, but why don't we start out with Nacha? Nacha has some big rule changes coming up very, very, very shortly. And if you haven't started addressing those changes, it's time to address those changes. I know you've done a lot of speaking on that. Do you want to give the folk a highlight of what's going on with that and your viewpoint on it?
Most certainly. So with Nacha, as everybody knows, it's probably forefront in everybody's mind in ensuring that they have the proper protection and monitoring capabilities for the new rules. Back in the day, it was just, we're concerned about money leaving an institution, the ODFI side, but now bringing in the extra ability to now monitor incoming, the credit side of it. So we've done a lot, and we know that institutions have been reaching out for that particular capability to be able to monitor and compare the credit party to the account, to the SEC codes and various other things. So that's certainly forefront in everybody's mind, as well as ours and in many other monitoring solutions. So that's a major factor that people did manually before, really didn't even concern that in their monitoring capabilities.
Yeah, I will tell you a secret. You guys, or maybe it was you that spoke at our payments management conference. And as an association, we talk about the rules where we consider ourselves payment folks. And I saw the proposal that Nice Actimize wanted to talk about the Nacha rules, and I was like, they do? I'm so excited. You know, it's like they do love us as far as payment folks go. And you're would you consider yourself a payment folk or a fraud person?
I'd say more focused towards fraud and the intricacies of that, especially being in this world of solution selling and monitoring and so forth. I certainly see myself on that round, having come from the investigative space for the government and then worked for a large institution doing the same sort of activity in monitoring the risk to an institution. So certainly see myself in that fraud realm, I think.
And one of the things, and you said employment with the government, so I don't know if this comes into it, but one of the things you said, and one of the things we like to ask is, when you were a kid, did you want to grow up to be a fraud person? How did you get here? How did you fall in love with this industry?
So I think exposed in my high school years with a fellow investigator, certainly years above me, just gaining an interest in that and understanding and following the money from one area to another. I think that certainly sparked my interest. And then joining the government, actually before that, going to college, doing areas of finance and investigations, and then the government itself doing investigations regarding fraud and money laundering and so forth. So I think from there, it just took off like a rocket.
You know, that's really interesting. Again, just a little insight. I came into this I was a computer guy, just maintaining the computers, but you get introduced to regulations. So there's a regulation. It was a couple of sessions before someone actually said, well, you know, BSA AML is really crime fighting. And I was like, what? You just supported that there. Literally, it's not just a reg. You're fighting crimes, right?
Yeah, and you bring up a good topic about being a computer guy. Having studied criminal justice in college, I did have a minor in in mathematics and computers. So it wasn't fully the breaking the doors type of guy. It was more of, hey, I want to connect both of the worlds together.
Excellent. And before we get too far, wrestling payments, I have to ask, did you ever have a favorite wrestler or did you watch it at all?
I would say Roddy Piper was my favorite, but we certainly can't forget Hulk Hogan and his years and days. God bless him.
Excellent. Yeah, no, he just certainly passed. He really changed things for wrestling as an industry. But that's another different podcast. Another thing I've seen you guys doing, and I'm curious about, a lot of executive orders coming out. And I hear that you touch on the White House executive orders. Is that true?
That is correct. Yeah, so in addition to Nacha, at Nice Actimize, we try to be on the forefront of understanding the regulatory changes that are coming down, whether it be in the short term or the long term, and try to understand how industries should more effectively monitor to meet those compliance regulations. So Nacha is one of them. White House mandate is another, knowing that the transition will be from paper checks to the digital place, so that you'll stop seeing a switch in payment channels. So the frequency will be reduced in the payments in the paper side and picked up on the digital world. So yes, we are certainly educated on that and trying to educate the audience as well in how to effectively switch from one to the other.
So it's always about, what your viewpoint is, I think. When I do training, it's where are you standing? Who are you in this scenario? As you think of that, as the mandate on eliminating checks in the federal government, we're excited. We're an ACH association. Very excited about that.
Sure.
But it seems like a heavy lift. What do you think about it? What are you finding out? What is the industry's perspective on this executive order?
I think people may think it's going to impact the larger institutions more, but you see there's a varying of the population. So I think there's going to be a split between the enterprise, the mid-market, and the smaller market banks. So I think they're equally going to take on the share of responsibility in the switch. But yeah, people aren't thinking it's going to impact them as much as it is, because they see the fluctuations in checks, even though it's going to be the Social Security checks, the tax checks, and so forth. But you can see the writing on the wall where it's going to maybe transition totally to digital, and all the particular paper areas are going to be eliminated. So getting ahead of that curve, even with this particular White House mandate, is going to be important. So institutions don't always need to reassess the type of monitoring they're doing, and being able to keep up in real time as well.
And I'll tell you, I'm certainly a little pessimistic when it comes to the government, any government, on how fast they can get it done. And initially, they said, we're going to have a report by this date and a report by that date. And I'm like, they're never going to make those dates. But the last thing I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, the implementation date for starting, I'm going to say starting, but the implementation date for no more checks is September 30th?
Yes, yeah. And I don't see them varying from that. I know we all have hesitation, and not to, it's like the DMV. Is it happening right away, or is it going to phase out over time? But I think they're really serious about it to assist in that reduction in fraud, because every institution sees that fraud piece, whether it be the check frauds or other areas that the government can help to eliminate.
And I don't think check fraud gets enough exposure. I think it's much worse than people think. And I think AI has helped these bad guys. I call them bad guys. It's a technical term, but they had all the traditional methods of doing check fraud, but they're also using AI. And I think, did I read that from one of your papers?
You possibly could, yeah. It's amazing in a lot of their clients we speak to in the past, the recent past, they're certainly switching to the ACH and the RDFI piece of it, but a majority of the concerns were on check fraud. You think with the introduction of digital, it's been around for a little while, but checks is still prevalent in the first area of fraud, which blows my mind still. I don't write a lot of checks. I'm not sure if you do or the audience does, but it's still very prevalent out there. And you, as mentioned, AI in technology is aiding these fraudsters in advancing for their own benefits, whether it be a altered check or the technology, the printers. The printer I have could probably print a pretty good quality check, but you imagine what fraudsters have at their exposure, at their disposal with the monies that they have, both as a group or as a conglomerate, as a check, as a fraud group, because they're not just siloed in one particular group. They're talking on the dark web. They have forums, just like we're talking here. There's things that they do to advance their fraud strategies and how to counter an institution's ability to detect those sort of scenarios.
I wonder if you could educate me and my audience. I mean, I'm doing it for the audience, not for me, but a little bit on just the extent of AI. And I know lots of the papers, that's how they catch my eye. First I see the AI on the topic of the paper, and then I see that you guys are doing it. I'm like, they're doing it again. But can you talk a little bit about, or actually, I'm going to sit back and just whatever you think my audience would need to know about what's going on with AI fraud and something about, is there identities being stolen? Anything you could tell me, I'm going to be a student right now.
Yeah, I think AI touches a lot of areas in fraud, and it could be extensive in that particular area or just parts of it. From the IDV perspective, certainly being able to create synthetic identities from partial existing identities, or doing a full-fledged development of an individual to mirror what a usual banker would do. So AI and the fraudsters is, again, they have access to the same technologies that we do, maybe even more, in advancing their own ability to defraud an institution, to defraud a person. From the perspective of the monitoring side, so the fraudsters have all the particular areas, whether they have bots or creation of synthetic identities. It's important for institutions to have the proper amount of proper AI, because AI could certainly run its course in the wrong direction for an institution. But having that correct AI, the guardrail AI, as we call it, to be able to properly protect individuals.
Yeah, the problem is I listen to folks talk, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I want to know more about that. I want to know more about that. The first one is Sean Carter here at Niche, president. He spent a lot of time on synthetic identities, but I thought it was all very academic. Can you talk to me about the reality of how synthetic identities are being used? Where are banks seeing those?
Yeah, I think certainly from the account opening perspective is getting access to an institution with a synthetic identity, a deep fake, or utilizing with AI as well in capturing that intelligence and making a complete profile for an individual. So you're not going to have a fraudster going out and searching the web for particular information. You're going to let AI do that for you. Hey, bring me information regarding a middle-aged male that is in a particular area. It's going to combine all that intelligence. You know how ChatGPT works and how effective in a manner that is. That's certainly what the fraudsters are doing to create that identity, to get into the institution, to be able to create a new photo. And I know I've done this many times with my own photo. Age me 10 years, put a beard on me, or make me bald, and it blows your mind what the results would be in those particular scenarios.
Yeah, it is truly amazing. I've just really started getting into AI, and the first time I did it, I called it magic because it was magic.
Yes. There is a limit to it, I think. As I mentioned, the proper AI, certainly from a compliance perspective, is an important factor, but from the outside world, the fraudsters have no concern in what's ethical and what is not ethical. So when you do your own photo, you'll be surprised when you start advancing that, what it's able to produce for you.
That's amazing. Let me ask you this. So I am in the process of, this is how I make plans. I set up a thought process. Here's the way things are. And then I try to prove that or disprove that. So, and we don't necessarily promote any products, but I know you have a lot of solutions. My current proposal or current theorem is financial institutions want to get the best defenses in place, but they have lots of regulatory hurdles to get through, as well as the ideas on the side that, well, if I do something here, it's going to replace my job. Finally, what they have available to them, we had 2 examples recently where one of our institutions developed an AI solution for something. They literally developed it, hired the guy, talked to the guy, worked through a program, did a process, and implemented that. The other example, they literally went to their fintech provider and said, what do you have built for us? Can you talk a little bit about that journey for institutions, whether they're ready for AI, not ready for AI? How could they adapt solutions without worrying about violating regulatory compliance they have to do? Is that any of that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think from the AI perspective, in our market, we see both of those sides. Hey, we would like to have yours complement ours, or we would like to utilize what you have within your tool set. And of course, I'll steer you towards the second, because with having a solution that has it built into it, there's probably other capabilities that your internal AI is not able to utilize the information within a holistic solution. So with the particular fraud solutions out there that an institution may want to utilize, it's across the board. We call it omni-channel. So you would want to look at and allow AI to look at all that intelligence, not just in a check channel or a wire channel or an ACH. You want to look at the full picture. And AI is able to do that quickly and efficiently to give you cross-channel risk, which is a major factor as well in today's world, using the digital online banking portal and other pieces. So AI from the solutions perspective is, I think, where a lot of institutions are leading, because having an internal team, you still need to refine that and develop that. Other solution providers, maybe us, maybe others, haven't been in it for a while. So we understand the guardrails. You talked about the ethnicity of a AI tool, ensuring that there are proper guardrails set in, privacy guardrails, ensuring that that information and that intelligence is acceptable by the internal organization, the FI, as well as the regulators. So that's some of the important factors. And I think the biggest misnomer is what you had mentioned, replacement of what I'm doing. It's actually not a replacement. A good AI solution or a good monitoring solution, AI is going to complement what that individual does, allowing them to do it more efficiently and effectively. AI should never replace what a human does, especially from the risk and compliance perspective, because in this day and age, maybe in 10 years, regulators and institutions would feel comfortable with AI making decisions end to end, say an alert to a case to regulatory filing, and then allow that AI to file the regulatory filing. We are not even anywhere close to that. So in that misnomer of it's going to replace me, we need to sort of rewire them to say it's going to allow them to work more efficiently and effectively. Because as we talk about Nacha, we talk about the White House mandate, understanding the increase in frequency of transactions you're going to see on the digital payments and the electronic rails, you're going to get many more alerts than you were anticipating you're going to have to review or cipher through to get to the real fraud.
That's fascinating. Literally, that's the word that triggered me, guardrails. That was the reason I asked that question.
And to add to that, guardrails is one area where you have specific areas that the AI is able to look at. It can't look at the outside web as you would use a traditional ChatGPT or other AI tools. The other biggest facet that an institution may need to consider is the explainability of the AI. Why is it making a decision? What is the underlying evidence? Maybe it's in a summarization fashion. That's as important as the intelligence.
Can you touch on why that's important? I mean, I think I know, but I don't want it to get lost. That's really important.
Yeah, because with AI, we all think about just let it do its work and we trust it. No, you would want to have an understanding of what is it looking at to make that decision, whether it be data or documentation. That's a major, you don't want AI that's in a black box, as we call it. You want to have open You want to give explainability behind how the AI is used, what intelligence it's gathering, so you can understand the end result of what that AI is doing for you.
All right, I'm going to kind of bounce things off you because
Sure.
I consider myself an AI student. So I'm going to check if I got this right or not. First, the things I read is we call that, it's called the man in the middle, or human in the middle, or human in the decision making.
We call it human in the loop.
Yes, human in the loop. That's a real thing, and
Yes.
it has to do with we're going to let AI do what it does, but we need a say in what the final decisioning is.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there always needs to be a human to whether we verify or amend what that AI is presenting to the end user. Because if it's in particular, say in a summarization fashion for regulatory filing, hey, this gave me a great summary, but I want to be able to tweak that slightly and maybe add or modify the information. That's where the human in the middle, or human in the loop, comes in, and then they push it through for approvals.
Excellent. And I don't know how to say this right, but so the way fraud alerts work, they were in the past, they were predetermined. If this happens, if this happens, if this happens, we think that's suspect and we want to see it. When you add AI to that, generally, does it basically learn from the scenarios? So over time, it changes what it's looking for?
You bring up a good topic. So what you're probably talking about is more of, say, a rules or policy-based sort of solution that looks at static criteria. If it goes over this particular amount, if it's this particular behavior, let's trigger an alert on that. That is good thinking in the past, but with AI, now it's able to I want to look at that person's unique behavior, because everybody banks differently. I bank different than you do, Joe, for my wife, for my kids, whether it be the time I log in, what channels I use, what are the recipients of my, or individuals that are sending me money, the values, the time of day, the device information. That's all crucial things you should be looking at, and AI allows you to do that in a very efficient and effective manner. We call it behavior analytics, which looks more of a granular view of your customer rather than just comparing that customer's behavior against a traditional criteria.
And again, just talking out my, we'll say knowledge, not where I'm really talking about. But in the future, imagining a future state, as a fraud person, I may have the same amount of cases I'm looking at today, but they're better quality, no?
I hope that you have less cases, but they're of better quality, because the AI should help you eliminate some of the noise that you experience today, because you are needing to do manual reviews or even allowing some technology to help you out. But I think in the future, you'll see far fewer alerts, but the alerts that you do see are probably going to lead to an investigation or regulatory filing.
Okay. All right. Excellent.
I think that's the goal of technology today. And the AI, we call it self-learning as well. That's a major factor. You had talked about the change. Yes, when you look at AI and allow that to do some work for you, we want to incorporate the change in a person's behavior, because tomorrow I may get transferred to a different location. It's going to change my profile. So I want it to automatically learn what my normal behavior is, so that it can adjust and alert you based on deviations in that.
So I think we do the same thing in education. It's called adaptive learning. And it's basically, as I interact with a learning tool, it knows that I don't need any training on that, but I need a lot of training on this, so it'll adapt what it gives me, what it serves
Correct.
me. Okay, great. I would love, and jumping back to cross-channel risk and looking at cross channels, I wonder if, and I don't know if you have this, but a theoretical, here's what could happen, but also if you have a customer who's using it today, have you seen a real cross-channel fraud captured, stopped, altered? I'd love
Yeah.
both examples.
Yeah, we certainly have, and we engage with a lot of clients that are introducing the digital channel or are already on it, but they're allowing other channels to be utilized through that, whether it be digital banking with RDC or allowing to send an ACH or a wire out. To have that cross-channel view to say, hey, there's risk in both of those particular channels, and we want to combine them as one, because that's an important factor. You talk about reducing the alerts. Let's reduce the alerts and give you the most efficient, effective alerts based on that cross-channel risk. Because fraudsters know, hey, if I'm talking to Joe, I get an authentication request, Joe's going to give it to me. He thinks I'm working for the bank. I then hang up with Joe, and I think I have the ability now to take control of his account. Having that cross-channel piece to say, we've seen some risk in the initial assessment with Joe because an MFA was sent out. But now we see other behavior that's not traditional of Joe. Let's challenge him again. So that's where that cross-channel piece comes in. Maybe he doesn't usually send a wire out via digital banking or deposit a check or do other behaviors that you would want a solution to detect for you. So that's where the cross-channel risk comes in, and being able to not only detect on that, but again, allow you to authenticate or even block at that second stage. Because then the fraudster's out of luck, and they're probably going to move to another institution or change their MOs to try to get back into it under a different premise.
That's super interesting. Again, when I'm on with guests, they say things, and I just want to run down that road. I'm a very nice guy. Fraud is bad. Fraud is bad for everyone. But that statement you just said is so true. I want to make it hard for the fraudster to defraud me. Not that they're going to go defraud someone else, but if you make it hard, they're I don't want to say they're lazy, but they do go down the road and find who has the open P2P module, who has the limits that are too high for their account opening stuff. They look for those things.
Yeah, they look for different demographics, different age groups, understanding where the vulnerabilities are, where they can hit on the heartstrings of those individuals and try to gain their trust.
Interesting. And the cross-channel part, I don't know how to set up this example, so I'll just describe it to you. Instant payments, RTP's been around for 8 years. The risk, the possibility that, and it hasn't happened. So for the fraudsters out there, this is not a challenge, but it hasn't happened. They have controls in place where it hasn't happened. But the idea that I could, as a fraudster, send the credit to an institution, seconds later, send the credit to another institution, second later, send it to another institution. As we think of that, that would be a cross-channel risk. Yeah, well, that's not really, that's sort of the one channel. But I could also, and in the past, let's talk pre-AI, and I know I'm setting up a lot of what ifs, could ifs. With
I'm
ACH,
following you, don't worry.
Usually the investigation is, oh, we did this yesterday. And you're kind of hunting down how to try to get the money back. With the use of AI, does it speed that process up?
Absolutely. We think of the old fraud realm as next day. Hey, next day is no longer good enough with especially the speed of transactions. RTP, FedNow, and others. You need to be able to monitor it at the speed of those transactions as they're happening, in being able to take some sort of action, whether it be operationally or within a solution, to hold that or challenge it. So certainly from the fraud perspective, you need that instant assessment of that transaction. And then if you see that behavior, one institution to another, that's another area. Hey, they're trying to bombard a variety of areas with the same sort of behavior. So that's the real-time piece is major for any institution to look at a proper monitoring solution.
And that sort of exhausts my prepared questions, but what haven't I asked that I should have asked? You like that question?
I do. It's a large, open-ended question. I think from what the audience would probably want to know, I think within this world of AI is, you had mentioned the pieces of replacing a job. Absolutely not. how can I get hands on this type of thing? Or what should I look at for AI? How can I have utilize and aid me? We talked about how AI is able to generate things for you. But I think the other question would be things that the analyst or investigator don't see and how AI is able to help them out from a triaging perspective. That's a major important area as well, to say, hey, based on previous dispositions or behaviors, this particular scenario isn't as important as the other one is. So allowing AI in the back end to do a lot of your heavy lifting for you. Again, it's not replacing what an analyst or investigator would do. It's just allowing them to use their time more efficiently and effectively. I think that's one of the major questions I would ask as an institution. Where else does AI aid me? And that's just one example. There's many examples that solutions use AI in the investigative perspective. Sorry. Yeah, I know.
No, it's fine. I just, again, it's rabbit holes. Is there a name for that? What would you describe? Because when I call AI magic, it puts together connections I wouldn't have put together in developing a blueprint for something. I use it for, I want slides in a presentation. I want, read me this white paper and look at this document and tell me, how would these relate to each other? It magically puts together thoughts and observations that I wouldn't naturally put together, which are dead on. Is that sort of what you're referring to?
Yeah, it's sort of an agentic piece where it's utilizing a very large amount of data, self-learning based off of that as well. So there's different AIs out there that do different functions. So agentic would be one of those areas that it's sort of a self-learning tool that's going to aid you and continue to learn based off of the information it sees. So it's more the agent. We call it agent, or there's other names that are utilized, but that's one of the major areas of advancements.
One of the things I've started thinking from that real, I think it's a real fear for people, not only from the, will it replace me? Are they trying to replace my job? But from the, well, if it does that, what do I do? Where's my value? And one of the values is being able to use that material to do your job better, right? It's certainly, AI is not walking in the door with its lunchbox saying, I want your seat. Get it. It's there as an assistant, right? If I could hire 5 agents to assist me in my daily activity, they are happy to assist me, and I'm happy for them to assist me.
Yeah, absolutely. With AI, I think it's breaking down those barriers, what we see and perceive AI as today. And I think we look at it from, and I can't remember the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Terminator, where you see the machines doing all the different sort of things.
Skynet.
Yeah, it's definitely an aid to an analyst or investigator or an institution because, as we talked about in the beginning of this conversation, transitioning from the paper world to the digital world, and as we phase in or bring in new users, like my son and knock on wood, son of my son or daughter of my son, they're going to be utilizing phones and laptops or maybe even smart glasses to do their banking. And you're going to see much more frequencies in those areas. So it's aiding them in detection and working the proper alerts that they would need to look at. Because me being an ex-investigator, and I didn't have the technology that we had now, how long it took me to review an alert, to assess it and make a proper determination. I would have loved to have something, because there's going to be work for analysts and investigators, even with AI introduced.
Excellent. I think that's it. I do have, it may be an odd request, but just, I always think of my audience doesn't know. From a commercial perspective, what would be, we've talked about agentic AI and fraud and all that. What does Nice Actimize do as a company? Can I ask for a commercial?
Absolutely. So I think for those that don't know Nice Actimize, it's a solution provider from the enterprise all the way down to the SMB markets, because everybody needs that same sort of protection. maybe at different levels and different capabilities. But we do utilize the machine learning, the AI, the behavioral analytics in all of our particular solutions, whether it be AML or fraud, and bringing in AI as well in the other areas where it's prioritization, summarization, investigation. So we sort of have you end to end from the compliance and risk perspective. And I think what the audience probably does know, but I just want to push it even further, is what we call omni-channel. So it's great to have protection across all channels in fraud, protection against the AML or BSA risks, or even the compliance risks for those global partners, but bringing that picture together as well. Because fraud definitely should correlate into the risk a client has as well as fraud. So combining those pictures under a single pane of glass is what our solutions do at Nice Actimize, from, again, to the enterprise level all the way down to the small mom and pop banks.
Excellent. Thank you. I know it's so funny. I know that Nacha is working with Nice Actimize on this side of the shop. It was so surprised for me to seeing so much educational stuff just from my daily LinkedIn and Facebook, seeing the paper and I'm like, oh, Nice Actimize, look at that. And downloading those papers. There's no cost to the papers. It's a white paper. Very, very educational. I've learned a lot. When you're in a position with members where stuff is developing, AI and fraud detection is developing, you have to educate yourself. You guys have been a great resource. Thank you.
Yeah, I think with the white papers, you mentioned that as well. It's very neutral in nature, just talking about a topic, not about a product, just educating you what you need to know in the specific fraud or risk or compliance realms.
And I always think of, if I'm a conservative institution that I don't really know if I like this AI stuff, that's okay. But the bad guys are using it. So it's, if you don't use it, they're going to beat you up. So it's a challenge. It's unavoidable, I think.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And I think as we get more into it and more comfortable utilizing it and exposing it, it will become ingrained in us, because in 5 years, you know how much AI is utilized in what you do on your phone. You don't even realize it's there.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, exactly. All right, excellent. It's been great. Do you have any parting words? I think this has been great. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Joe, for the time here today, and hopefully the audience got some value out of it. And we appreciate the partnership and look forward to future conversations.
Excellent. Nice talking to you, Brian.
Thanks, Joe.
On behalf of Nacha, your trusted resource in payments, and our guests, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning into the podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to hear more about payments innovation and modernization, you can find the Wrestling Payments Podcast on the podcast page of Nacha.org or wherever you subscribe to podcasts. Just search for Wrestling Payments in your podcast app. Thanks for listening.